When you think of dementia, you probably think of Alzheimer's and other irreversible causes that continue to progress. This is why normal pressure hydrocephalus is super important, because it's actually one of the few reversible and treatable causes of dementia. It's a can't miss diagnosis. So in this video, I'm gonna break it down. So the key to understanding this disorder is all in the name. So hydrocephalus means you have excess CSF accumulating inside of the brain, and the way that you make this diagnosis is by getting brain imaging like a CT or MRI, and what that's going to show you is enlarged ventricles. As you can see right here, the blue arrow is pointing to enlarged lateral ventricles. Now, the other part of the name is normal pressure. So what is this talking about? So normal pressure refers to the intracranial pressure. And since we can't stick a needle in the cranium and measure the pressure directly, the only way that we can actually measure intracranial pressure is through a lumbar puncture, where we obtain cerebral spinal fluid and we check the opening pressure, which is basically how much pressure is that fluid under as it's coming out. In most cases of hydrocephalus, you expect the intracranial pressure to be high. And that's because intracranial pressure is the sum total of the cerebral spinal fluid plus how much brain tissue we have plus how much blood volume is in the skull. So if you have more CSF, that means you should have a higher intracranial pressure, and that's what happens in most cases of hydrocephalus. You would have increased ICP. However, in normal pressure hydrocephalus, you have a normal intracranial pressure. And so this is the key distinguishing feature that's unique to normal pressure hydrocephalus. And so the punchline here is that normal pressure hydrocephalus is two things. Number one, hydrocephalus. Number two, normal intracranial pressure. All right, so now that we know what it is, let's talk about how it happens. So it's idiopathic, which means that we don't know why it happens. But the first problem is that we have impaired absorption of the cerebrospinal fluid by the arachnoid villi. And what this is going to do then, since the CSF can't be reabsorbed, is it's going to cause the CSF to accumulate and back up into the ventricles. And so this is going to lead to enlargement of the ventricles. All four ventricles are going to dilate proportionately. This is known as a communicating hydrocephalus. I have a separate video that I'll link at the end if you want to learn more about the differences between communicating and non-communicating hydrocephalus. But getting back to normal pressure hydrocephalus, the final point about how it happens is that this is a slow onset process. And this is important because it means that the brain and the ventricles have enough time to expand and stretch to be able to accommodate this extra volume without causing too much of a rise in the intracranial pressure. And so the fact that this is a gradual and slow process is the reason why this causes a normal intracranial pressure in contrast to most other causes of hydrocephalus. So now let's talk about what's the consequence of all of this hydrocephalus. What's it going to cause? So what's going to happen here is that as these ventricles enlarge, they're going to compress the surrounding white matter nerve fibers that are around them. And specifically, the white matter that surrounds the ventricles is responsible for gait, cognition, and urinary control. And that's why the main neurological symptoms associated with the stretching of these fibers have always been remembered by medical students as the 3 W's, which stand for wobbly, wacky, and wet. Wobbly refers to problems with gait. Wacky refers to cognition issues, and wet refers to urinary incontinence. So the punchline here is that these enlarged ventricles are going to stretch and compress the nerve fibers that are in the white matter that surround them. And this is going to lead to the neurological symptoms, which are gait disturbance, cognitive decline, and urinary incontinence. This ties in nicely with the clinical presentation. So usually this is going to present in a patient that's older than 60 years old, and the typical presenting symptom is going to be progressive confusion or dementia. And you might be tempted to think that this older person with dementia has Alzheimer's, but this dementia is going to be associated specifically with gait problems and urinary incontinence. Remember the 3 W's. So the key here is that the presenting symptoms in normal pressure hydrocephalus are going to be this triad of dementia, gait problems, and urinary incontinence. So to make the diagnosis of normal pressure hydrocephalus, first step is to make the diagnosis of hydrocephalus, which is done by brain imaging, and that's going to show enlarged ventricles. And on MRI, you may actually be able to see the white matter changes that's occurring in the nerve fibers that are surrounding these dilated ventricles. The next step is to make the diagnosis of normal pressure. And as we talked about before, this is by lumbar puncture. We check the opening pressure, and this is going to be normal or only slightly elevated, much lower than you would expect in most other causes of hydrocephalus. So this is going to confirm that we have a normal pressure hydrocephalus. There's another test you might hear about, which is called the positive tap test, referring to spinal tap or lumbar puncture. Basically, you check the patient's gait before and after doing the spinal tap. When you do the spinal tap, you remove a large volume of fluid, so something like 30 to 50 cc's of CSF. And basically what happens is that when you recheck the gait, it's going to improve a lot because you've removed a lot of the CSF that was causing the problem. This is going to help support the diagnosis of NPH. And then it's also a good predictor that if you treat by placing a drain that removes the cerebral spinal fluid, this is going to help their symptoms a lot. So speaking of treatment, let's end with that. Since the problem is that the brain can't reabsorb the CSF itself, we need a treatment that's going to provide continuous removal of that excess CSF from the brain. And this is usually done by a device that's implanted that continuously shunts the CSF away from the brain. And the most common one is called a VP shunt. VP stands for ventriculoperitoneal shunt. That means that it removes the CSF from the ventricle and dumps it into the peritoneal cavity where we have plenty of space to accommodate it. And so this is a figure of what one would look like. So one catheter is inserted in the ventricles where it's draining the cerebral spinal fluid, and then the catheter is tunneled under the skin. From the other end, it empties into the peritoneal cavity. And so we get continuous drainage of the CSF, which helps make the hydrocephalus go away and the patient's symptoms improve. Okay, so let's end by quickly recapping what we learned. It's called normal pressure hydrocephalus. Hydrocephalus because we have enlarged ventricles on brain imaging, and normal pressure because the ICP is normal or only mildly elevated. The root cause of the hydrocephalus is impaired CSF absorption. All 4 ventricles are going to enlarge. This is a communicating hydrocephalus. And then these enlarged ventricles are going to cause compression of the surrounding nerve fibers, which is going to lead to our classic symptoms, the W triad of wacky, wobbly, and wet. So dementia, gait disturbance, and urinary incontinence. To make the diagnosis, we get brain imaging, which shows us hydrocephalus, and then we do an LP. The opening pressure, again, is going to be normal or only slightly high, telling us that our hydrocephalus is normal pressure. And then finally, the treatment is to implant a drain that's going to remove that excess CSF, most commonly a VP shunt. If this video helped you, please give it a like, drop a comment, and share it with others. The next video I think you should watch is this overview of hydrocephalus, where I go through pathophysiology of hydrocephalus and its different causes. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.